Introducing the first ever Grand Highlander, a mid-size SUV with the ideal combination of space, performance, style, and advanced tech. The roomy Grand Highlander boasts 3 spacious rows with available seating for up to 8. Its available 362 horsepower hybrid max powertrain, unlimited and platinum trims, delivers the power, acceleration, and efficiency so your family can take on any adventure. There's even a standard digital key, a panoramic view mirror, and a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen, so you always arrive on time. Live life grander in the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander.
For those that make it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it means you're among the elite, the greats of the game. Hager is the proud maker of the iconic Pro Football Hall of Fame gold jacket, in America's #1 selling suit jacket brand. Hager's expertly tailored, premium quality fabric with built-in stretch and incredible attention to detail dresses you for style, comfort, and class. Take advantage of all the incredible sales now throughout the holiday season. Go to Hager.com for every occasion. Wear what the greats wear. Visit Hager.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a Baller.
Welcome in. It's Christmas week here on the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Borgnoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew Betz and Mike Wright, who are both, seems like, in the Christmas mood.
What gives you that impression?
'Tis the season.
You guys feeling festive, or are you just feeling like you're...
He asked
I asked you a question, you just looked at me.
Yeah.
I feel like I
Off to a
wanted some
great start.
energy on a first ever Christmas show. I mean, a Christmas special, if you will.
Well, I am in the Christmas spirit, let me just say. But right now, I mean, I'm just wearing like a regular t-shirt, nothing Christmas themed in the background. So I was just wondering what makes you say that. And you just stared back at me as if I didn't ask you a question. We're off to a great start today.
Yeah. TV Christmas specials usually are just like one-off episodes, but I feel like the things that we're going to bring up on this episode that we're going to talk about are going to lead us into 2024. We're going to tease some rookies, talk about our Christmas wishes, kind of maybe even reminisce about years of Christmas past. But Mike, you are still alive in the main Dynasty League.
I am. I took out Brooksy. I've lost Jamar Chase more than likely. And I have, for a Dynasty team in the semis, I have a really unfair amount of actual legit start-sit questions. Like usually, if you're this far with your Dynasty squad, you got your main roster, and then you just have a bunch of trash on the bench. I have like legit start-sit decisions that could cost me, that's great. It feels good. Feels good to be here, everybody.
Nothing like sweating a matchup that is very important around your family on the holidays. I mean, that's what the NFL is for, isn't it?
Mike, didn't you get the first ever start-sit at quarterback right in your entire career?
Yes. I think that has been a bugaboo for me. But yeah, it was, we talked about it on the main show of do I go, there was 3 quarterbacks. It was Browning, Flacco, and Jared Goff. We went Jared Goff. But guess who gets to make that decision all over again with 3 terrible matchups for all the quarterbacks?
Yeah. Betz, are you alive anywhere?
Oh yes, sir. I'm alive in quite a few. A couple buys last week. Snuck through in a league where I was forced to panic start in a Superflex league. Zach Wilson with the Jalen Hurts news. I was like, man, I might not have a quarterback to play this week if Jalen Hurts doesn't play on Monday night. Forced to start Zach Wilson.
No.
Yes. Also on that team had Bijan. So I got Arthur Smith and had Zach Wilson somehow snuck through. Thank you, James Cook, for turning in a career day. I got very lucky in that one. So I had James Cook, took on someone that had a floor game from Dak. So it's just funny how fantasy works out, man, when one week can just change everything, even though on the course of the year, recently, especially Dak's been out of control. But yeah, I'm through to a few semis, a couple best ball teams to sweat, so all is good.
That's unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
I know. I was just like, as soon as I put Zach Wilson in, I was like, I hate myself, and I will see you guys next year.
In one sense, I am not alive in my Dynasty playoffs, but maybe in another sense, I have never felt more alive that Mike and Jason are just dead in the Dynasty. I don't know if I wanted to win more or wanted them to lose more.
I understand.
So their team of destiny finally came to an end, and they'll probably have some off-season things to talk about. We'll even talk about some of those players. What do you do with some aging veterans? And so we'll talk about all that on the show. If you want to get in on the fun, you can go to jointhefoot.com to be a part of our community, talk about off-season moves, Dynasty, everything else. And I wanted to give another pro tease because it's what podcasting is all about. In just a hot second, we're about to turn the page and look at the 2024 Dynasty Pass. And that kind of leads into my quick question today, because one of the things we do is profile rookies from a number of different angles. We look at their film, look at their college production, we compare it to wide receivers in the NFL, their draft capital. And my question for us is just to give a tease of one player in 2024 rookie drafts. We are going to be going through all of those players, entire episodes, looking at them. But my first kind of overarching point to give people before we dive into specific players is to make sure you take a collective approach. Like, you're going to fall in love with players, fall in love with picks right now, but do not zero in on just one aspect. Don't just look at one tweet you saw from one person or one highlight film or just the production profile or just what college they went to. Like, take a collective approach. We always talk about staying water with prospects and not just saying this is that player. But Mike, I'm going to let you go first because
unless
it's this player.
Yeah, all those things that Kyle said are very correct. Unless we are, of course, talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm super pumped for January. Number one, I will be free of this anxiety that is fantasy football playoffs, which we love, but it's also the worst to just sit in it. So in January, that will be over. I will either have a championship or I won't. But then I get to jump into these rookies, and in season, there's only time for, at least for me, it's NFL. I'm not scouting. I'm not getting a bunch of information on these players. But Marvin Harrison Jr., this was already known last year that this dude is him. He's coming in pro ready. This is a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson level of a prospect. He just took home the Biletnikoff Award, which that's best wide receiver in college. I mean, he has everything that you can possibly want. Size. He's a true number one. He's going to be drafted in the top 5. He's the 101 from now until rookie drafts happen, barring a dinosaur extinction level catastrophe. Marvin Harrison Jr. will be the 101. And we're just really, it's so exciting to get players like this in where, we're always excited about prospects, but they're even the ones you are the most excited about. They can't miss, but Marvin Harrison is, in fact, a can't miss.
Yeah, you're going to have every single box checked, from production to draft capital to scouting evaluation to last year. Scouts were talking about him in JSN's pro day, like, okay, I have to wait an entire year for this player. Jason already tried to wrestle him away from Jeremy and I, who have the 101.
I can't believe he did this. So what did he offer you?
He just offered us Breece Hall straight up, and we said, no way. We've been
that's
waiting.
A hard pass.
Yeah, and it was him trying to sweet talk and say, hey, I think this would be really good for your team. And I just shot back like, no, like this is, no, you don't understand. We've waited for this moment.
Let me tell you why this is good for you.
That is the worst. We already have JSN. We can add Marvin Harrison, just collect all the Ohio State wide receivers. So yeah, we're going to be talking about him a lot and gushing about him. Betz, you're up next.
Yeah, the tight end position in Dynasty is fun again, which is just crazy, right? Like, we've got kind of the turning of the page here with these young guys in Laporta, McBride, Kincaid, the list goes on and on. We're going to add Brock Bowers to that group here next year, who is out of Georgia. All the guy did was, as a true freshman, step on the field and set the record for the school for tight ends with catches, yards, and 13 touchdowns as a true freshman. This dude won the Mackey Award in back-to-back years for the nation's top tight end. And we don't have any data on how they're testing yet. Obviously, we'll get that at Pro Days and the NFL Combine. But this guy ran a 4.48 in high school. So you get kind of this athletic move tight end that we love for fantasy. And this is a guy who had a high ankle sprain this year, had to have the tightrope procedure, actually came back and played in the SEC championship game. But even factoring in that he missed time with that injury, still led the NCAA in yards after the catch this year. Not on a per game basis, just overall, even with missing time. So he has the profile we look for in these difference-making tight ends. So I'm excited about Brock Bowers. The guy's a stud.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. We've kind of stayed away from tight ends that have early capital because there's been value, but he's just different. He's different in how he's used. Speaking as someone here in Georgia and someone that gets to watch SEC football, teams have to scheme for him. They've got some fun players. I think I remember Mike and I had a conversation about Lad McConkey, which is just a really fun wide receiver.
Also, I mean, Brock ends up a Falcon, right?
Probably.
Get him in there to block, baby.
Yeah, we need him to block for Jonnu. That's the key, so that we can get that in there. I want to throw out quarterback because going into the season, it was everybody saying, I need to tank for Caleb Williams in Superflex leagues, and Drake May was kind of seen as right there with him, but a little bit behind in Dane Brugler's initial top 50 rankings, which Dane Brugler of The Athletic is really one of the best sources if you want draft information. He has Drake May number 1 on his big board, and Jaden Daniels came out of nowhere for LSU and won the Heisman. So there's a couple of names up there, but J.J. McCarthy from Michigan, Michael Penix from Washington, Bo Nix from Oregon. These are all players that could be in the first round. And so in Superflex leagues, you might have a plethora of options to be able to jump in and see, who's available for you in the first round if you're going to take a Superflex. But I just want to say, before you say this is my guy or, I think this person's overrated, one of the things that I look for in the scouting process is what they do in the intermediate area. So in that 11 to 19, if you can do that in the pros repeatedly, then you are one of those players that can make a difference. CJ Stroud, that was one of the strongest parts of his production profile we talked about on this show earlier this year. It was just saying he slays in that area and he's doing it in the NFL. So it is the most system-dependent position. You guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but we've seen so many quarterbacks drafted in the first round in the NFL draft bottom out just because, one, the situation, the play calling, and it's a bad team, right? If you're getting drafted early on, your team stinks. And if you're not surrounded by a, play caller that is somewhat creative, then it's not a guarantee just because these guys are great because they put out the production profile. Like we've seen that over and over and over again with these quarterbacks. So do you guys have any thoughts right now, just based on personal feel, vibes alone, of who you like better between Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels? Those are the three I think that are separating.
I have no vibes.
That's okay. I think it's better to go in saying, I'm not going to just go off of what other people are saying.
Yeah, and truthfully, I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch these guys in detail. Kind of like Mike said, for us, we're just so, in the weeds of the NFL season that when the calendar turns to January and things slow down for us, we really do dive in. So I don't have a strong take on any of these guys yet. I will say there's been a lot of positive buzz on Jaden Daniels as far as his ability to deliver in the intermediate area of the field, something Kyle had touched on, which is something that not a lot of people were talking about with him, when he was at Arizona State and then transferred. He was kind of not viewed as that type of guy, but he certainly adds the rushing that you look for, at least in fantasy. So he's interesting, but no, I don't think we have a strong consensus at the top. I've seen NFL draft analysts say that it's clearly Caleb Williams, and I've seen some that say it's clearly Drake May. So tells you that we don't know yet.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. And part of the process for us in evaluating is that we kind of go individually. I love, Jason does this all the time. You do this, Mike, where you have your own notes somewhere, and then you're like, hey, have you watched this player yet? Oh, you haven't? Okay, well, I'm not saying anything until you come back and kind of give me your thoughts. So I feel like it's a measured approach. We're not fully in. We're not only looking at, numbers only, but we're not just film bros grinding the tape. Although we could be if we wanted to. Sometimes
of course we could.
Yeah. Sometimes you get in the rabbit holes of this is what I want to do today. I'm just going to look at film, but we will get all of those in the Dynasty Pass, which comes out Super Bowl Sunday.
Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah. So you can get in on that. But we have a special Christmas episode we're going to go into.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Jason Moore has played the role of Santa in the past.
He has.
And so much so that Jason Moore's voice, I think, was probably the best to be able to give as Santa Claus. Spoiler alert, he has a pretty good boom boom this week.
Oh, no.
It's a great one. It's going to be... yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, just wait for it, Mike.
I'm always waiting for it.
And it's the only thing we actually plan for anymore. Jason just plans for you and your reaction to it.
Okay.
So before we get into our Dynasty Christmas wishes, I want to first just kind of reflect. Guys, what were your most memorable Christmas presents as a kid? And what was that like? Mike, you go first.
Okay. I have two that were kind of, these, like, they really stick out. They're pivotal moments. Number one was I don't even remember how old I was, maybe 7, maybe 8, but it was at that time, it feels like everyone around me had a Nintendo Entertainment System, but I did not. So I would everything was, Mom, you got to take me to so-and-so's house. I mean, I specifically made friends in first grade who I knew they had a Nintendo. Like that, what did we have in common of personalities? They had a Nintendo, and they had different games than I did. So we were now friends, so I could go to your house and play your Nintendo games. So that was incredible. And then the other one was junior high. Yeah, my parents got me good. So it was they gave me a 7-string guitar, but they pulled the whole Christmas was done. And it's such a weird feeling as a kid, and you're looking at your presents, you're looking at your siblings' presents, and you're going, I'm really grateful for all this stuff, but something is not adding up right now. There is a massive disparity in the presents that my sister got and what I got. So you're like, I'm not expecting anything else. I've opened all my gifts. I'm okay. Thanks, guys. And then they go, oh, well, hold on. And then they go into the back room. Like, well, we had one more thing. And they got me this guitar that I had been asking for, forever. So that was, in which I still have that guitar today. That is the guitar that does almost every single fantasy footballers drop. So I mean,
Wow.
I got that thing. Oh my God. We got to be coming up on 30 years of having that guitar. So
That's awesome.
Great instrument. I mean, good on my parents for getting me something that lasted for so long. But those are my two.
Betsy?
That's great. Yeah, Mike, you're probably looking around the room. You're like, sweet, I got a book. Oh, my sister got a pony.
They put me in such an uncomfortable position of Christmas morning of feeling disappointed. Weird. It was weird.
That's great. For me, the one that really sticks out is I feel like there aren't any 90s kids that weren't, especially guys specifically, but 90s kids opening an N64 on Christmas morning was it. I mean, my goodness, playing Tony Hawk, so many games on that thing for hours. And for me, it'd be like
Hold on. N64 and the first game you list is Tony Hawk? I mean,
Tony Hawk Pro Skater?
Oh, incredible games. Like, I mean, the amount of hours I logged on Tony Hawk are out of control. I'm just saying,
Same.
Specifically when I go N64, my brain does not go Tony Hawk. I go to the N64 exclusives. GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Mario 64, Smash Bros.
Yes,
Wave
all the
Race.
above. All the above.
Yeah,
I don't know why that
saying,
popped into my head.
It's
but
so
it did.
weird, man.
But it did. But man, just playing that for, hours and hours and hours. Like in the days leading up to it, I probably had, after Christmas, probably a total of like 100 steps for like a week straight, just not moving my butt off the couch playing that game. So N64 was awesome.
My favorite system I got was my Super Nintendo. That's still my favorite system I've ever had in my life. I still have my games that, my King Griffey Jr., Major League Baseball, my Donkey Kong Country, my Mario Kart. Those were my games on that system, NBA Jam. But I posted this picture for you guys to see, but like I had an Adidas phase in like 4th, 5th grade.
Were you like a big Run DMC guy?
I don't know what it was, but I basically had to have like only Adidas clothes. And I remember in 5th grade, it was a thing where like I have to get new Adidas shoes by Christmas. So
this is you in the tracksuit.
Yes. And I was just rocking it. So that, and then my most memorable one was actually a little bit of a letdown. I asked for Jordans for a while because I got into basketball in middle school, and I finally got a pair of Jordans, and I just was like, I'm going to be so cool. I love them. And then I wear them to school, and literally 5 minutes into school, somebody goes, aren't those like the Eddie Jones version of Jordans? Like they like Eddie Jones was a basketball player for the Hornets. He was on the Lakers, the Heat, and he's kind of like was a second-rate star player. And for a hot second,
he had his own shoe.
He had his own shoe. But all of my friends said, those aren't even like the best Jordans. And I just felt...
Oh, dude. Oh, no.
Are you putting your parents on blast, Kyle?
No, they did a great job. All I asked for was Jordans.
They probably didn't know better.
No. And like, think about it, at the time, you're not really searching on the internet. Like, you look at like catalogs like East Bay or whatever. Like, those are the things that you had.
You go to Foot Locker.
And my parents just picked them out. Yeah. And so they did what they were supposed to do. And then all of a sudden, I was an uncool kid for not having as cool Jordans.
Bro.
So, hey, props to my parents. But yeah, no, I did some online
do
digging.
better, Mrs. Borganoni.
Oh no, she's gonna hear this. So yeah, those are the most memorable Christmas presents as kids. And on this episode, what we're gonna do is kind of talk about our Christmas wishes for Dynasty. Each of us came up with 2. And part of it is looking for 2024. Some of these might even be selfish, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to be selfish in Dynasty League. So, Betz, I will let you go first and lead us off and tell us one thing that you want to see for 2024.
Yes, I'm going to start the conversation off with a team that was just embarrassed on Thursday Night Football last week. We're talking about the Chargers. And specifically here, my wish is that this team reloads Justin Herbert's skill group, which quietly is not great looking at this year and beyond. Mike Williams coming off the ACL is going to be 29 years old. Keenan Allen is entering his age 32 season next year. Those guys both under contract for one more year. And then at the running back position, we kind of know the story with Eckler, which we've talked about on this show at length, with him entering free agency and showing many signs of decline. Even guys like Jalen Guyton, Gerald Everett, those guys are free agents this coming year. So this is a team that needs a second playmaker at least to enter the conversation for next year, and probably a third. And then beyond 2024, it's a complete question mark given the state of the free agency situation. They're $45 million over the cap. That is 31st in the league this year. And then huge, man, Quentin Johnson. If he had shown life and a chance to emerge this year, really the seas parted for him, right? I mean, you had the Mike Williams early injury, you had the Eckler decline, like Josh Palmer on IR. That just didn't happen. And we've talked a lot about these guys, the guys that don't, show some signs in year one. It's not always that they're never going to hit, but the hit rate is so low. And so if you have a miss on your first round wide receiver from last year, they were really relying on Quentin Johnson to be the heir apparent to the Mike Williams, Keenan Allen situation. If that doesn't work out, I just kind of wonder where we're at with Justin Herbert as far as his fantasy outlook in the short term. Obviously, in Dynasty, he's a stud and we don't really have any concerns. But, for short term, it's like, man, could he have a top 5 season? Could he have a top 8 season if the skill group isn't there to support him? So my wish is for the Chargers to reload the skill group for Justin Herbert.
So how do they do it?
Great question.
I'm racking my brain because I've always been a Chargers truther. And I feel like my only response is just wondering, like, did they just flat out miss their window completely and then screw themselves over for the next 3 to 4 years? Because they spent a lot on defense. They spent a ton on the offensive line. They drafted Rashawn Slater and their GM's fired. Like, I feel like they're having to start all over from a skill position standpoint. And that's terrifying to me for a player that just signed a huge contract extension and they need a new scheme. I mean, I guess I'm just asking and trying to not be doomsday here, but did they miss their window where we're going to look back in 5 years and say, we got 10 years of Justin Herbert, and maybe 3 of those were great for fantasy.
It's very possible. What was the cap number, Betz, that you have?
They're $45 million over the cap for this coming season next year. That ranks 31st.
So like that's what's your source on that one? Or using
that's from Spotrac.
A Spotrac, okay. It's like with that, I mean, you're going to have to clean some contracts and be willing to take on some dead money, but with the draft of Quentin Johnston, I mean, do they go like full old school Detroit Lions where they just keep drafting wide receiver after wide receiver and eventually you find Calvin Johnson? But because you can't, how does this team take another first round wide receiver? They are in big trouble.
They will have, as of now, we'll see what happens over the next couple weeks. They have the 8th overall pick currently. They also have the 39th overall pick. So it would not be surprising to me if they use one of those two and take a shot on another pass catcher, just given the state of things, because with the free agency issue, we talked about that too with some of the upcoming wide receivers. Like there's some great names that are going to be available, but they're not going to be in the running, I think, given the financial situation for those dudes. So they're going to have to do it in the draft. So I would not be surprised to see them use at least a day 2 pick on a pass catcher here.
Yeah, they're going to have to restructure. I'm looking at some numbers like Khalil Mack, his cap hit this next year, $38 million. Joey Bosa, cap hit, $36 million. They're just going to have to restructure some stuff because
that's not good.
Yeah, and then Derwin James is owed a ton of money over the next 4 years. So I worry that with a new regime that it's really hard to make a huge splash on a team that is going to have 2 or 3 pieces that are out in the next year, like and aged out at least, like Keenan, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. Those guys are not going to be a part of the conversation when we look at 2025 Justin Herbert. So my last little point for Christmas wish, I want him to get the new weapons. But is it possible that you can get a haul now for Justin Herbert in like, let's say a super flex league?
Interesting.
You can get a haul for him for sure, I think. I mean, he's valued as a top 6 guy consensus, no question.
Yeah. There's just a lot more variables where I'm not saying, I love Justin Herbert. I really do. But I also think it's hard to make the upside case when we've kind of seen the offense be as best as it could, where I just don't see him returning a top 5 season right now, apart from just a massive touchdown. Like he was doing that early in the year, right? Like the touchdowns were going his way. He was actually running the ball in. I just don't know, just pure numbers wise, if I can get him to 35 touchdowns again, if his wide receiver in 2 years is Quentin Johnston and I don't know who else.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of time between now and then to flex seal some stuff, but it's not an optimistic picture right now.
Yeah, I would wait, but I think you can think about shopping him if you're in a Superflex league and you might be able to get a haul. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
You need a vehicle that can meet your family's needs, and Toyota has you covered. Introducing the first ever Grand Highlander, a midsize SUV with the ideal combination of space, performance, style, and advanced tech. The roomy Grand Highlander never makes you choose between passengers and cargo. You can fit both with ease. With 3 spacious rows and available seating for up to 8, and legroom that makes even long trips comfortable. With Grand Highlander's available 362 horsepower hybrid max powertrain unlimited and platinum trims, you can be confident you have the power, acceleration, and efficiency needed for almost any adventure your family can cook up. And you'll get where you're going in style with a modern, spacious cabin that's perfect for both playdates and date nights. Impressive tech upgrades take the new Grand Highlander to the next level, including a standard digital key, an available panoramic view mirror, and a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen. Don't just live life grander in the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander.
To be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame means you're among an elite class representing the greats of the game. The gold jacket given to those in the Pro Football Hall of Fame represents their achievements of greatness that only a few have reached. Hager has been the proud maker of the iconic Pro Football Hall of Fame gold jacket since 1978 and is America's #1 selling suit jacket brand. You don't have to be inducted to the Hall of Fame to elevate your style and dress like the best, Hager has you covered for every occasion. From the big interview, big promotion, or next wedding season, Hager gives you the confidence and look that you deserve. Hager's expertly tailored, premium quality fabric with built-in stretch and incredible attention to detail meets the demand for style, comfort, and class. That's why the greats wear Hager. Take advantage of all the incredible sales now throughout the holiday season at Hager.com. Wear what the greats wear. Visit Hager.com for every occasion.
All right, we're back, and Mike is going to give us the most unselfish thing that he could want for 2024.
Yeah. Speaking of selfish, but there are many people out there with me, and it is let Trey McBride cook next year. Like, continue to let it happen, because right now is incredible. The run that he is on, just turned 24. It's only his second year in the NFL, and since week 8, we've seen nearly a 30% target share for him, the tight end 3 in fantasy football. And that's, I mean, he's not even putting up, he's not putting up Laporta touchdown numbers, which, in my opinion, is in the range of outcomes for Trey McBride. Like, I think he is that dude. The question for McBride then is, which they're to try to remove myself from my excitement, there are real questions of what is Kyler Murray the quarterback next year? You know, if the Cardinals end up with the top 2 pick, do they reboot? You know, they trade Kyler away and his larger contract. You reset with a rookie quarterback. Okay, well, now we have a rookie quarterback coming in, and despite the greatness of C.J. Stroud, you could end up with someone like Bryce Young, where you're getting absolutely no fantasy value from any skill players on that team right now. Or the Cardinals are at 3, and they take Marvin Harrison Jr., and he comes in and he is an alpha right away. But even in that scenario, it can still be him and Trey McBride. But it's just the point is, hopefully he keeps showing out the rest of the year, because I feel like if you keep balling at the level that he's at right now, then the team, their offseason plans shift. You know what I mean? It's not that was Trey McBride had a nice run for us, let's fix our weapons. It's, maybe we have our number 2, or like we have a Travis Kelce type of player here, and let's just get another great wide receiver, and then we can play 2-man football, and we focus on these 2 guys getting all these targets, because the run has been incredible. The draft selection for them is definitely paying off, and dynasty wise, which I'll spin the conversation to this just to have a quick amount of fun. I tried to do a quick dirty re-rank of my top 10 fantasy tight ends, and it's wild. I mean, this is a massive shakeup. When I did it, I still kept Mark Andrews number 1 because he's great. His role in the offense is solidified, and he's got Lamar Jackson. And his coaching staff, he's locked in. That's at least the next couple of years. Then I tried to be somewhat unbiased. I put Laporta at number 2. He's younger than Trey McBride. He's coming through with all these touchdowns. He's doing what he's doing as a rookie, like instantaneously. And then I put McBride at 3, which means where's Travis Kelce? Where's Kyle Pitts? And the shakeup of the top 10 it's absurd. It is absolutely absurd what's going to happen to these rankings. So I'll spin the conversation to you guys that way. Like, do you happen to have your a quick or dirty top 10 tight end list on you, or can you work through one?
Yeah, I think my first conversation, you put Laporta at 2, could you put him at 1?
Absolutely. Absolutely, You could.
I put Laporta 1, and then I actually had a really hard time figuring out where to put TJ Hawkinson. I think he could go as high as 2. I think he'd go to 5. But Hawkinson is a year and a half younger than Andrews. I think that
he has a quarterback problem.
Yes, for sure. So this is me speaking out loud. Betz, you can punch me as the smart doctor here, but it just bothers me with Mark Andrews that I feel like I'm always worried that he's going to get banged up. And I know that's more of just like anecdotal, but it's happened a lot as a Mark Andrews manager that I've had to deal with that as he's gotten older. But 28 for tight ends is nothing. So I had Laporta, and then I had Andrews, Hawkinson, and then McBride at 4.
Okay.
I think that
I don't like it, but I'll allow it.
Is fair. I mean, I feel like sometimes we're almost a little bit too conservative with seeing this type of stuff on the field, and then you ask yourself, or you make excuses for like why it's happening or why it couldn't happen the next year, or you don't want to be too aggressive. But why can't Trey McBride be the second overall tight end in Dynasty, right? I mean, if someone wants to argue for him as 1, I don't think that's crazy. Like the top 4, top 5 to me is very fluid. I think I'd have Laporta just 1 based off age. I mean, this dude is so young. Doing what he's doing as a rookie is unheard of. And the situation seems pretty locked in. I think Jared Goff's the dude there for the next few years. Then I don't think it's crazy to say McBride, and maybe then Andrews if you're just using age, even though we play in like a 2-year window. But those kind of conversations I think are certainly valid with that. And McBride's a guy that I think there's still, not for a lot of people, but for some leagues, like there's still some people that are like, oh man, like this end of season run, I want to capitalize on this. I'm trying to get this dude on my rosters if I can. So if there's a window where your league doesn't value him as a top 5 option overall, I mean, you got to go get him now before it's too late.
Where would you guys have Kincaid? Because before the season, he was kind of seen as 5th, 6th. And I feel like you could put him there again, but then you're asking yourself, like, Kittle, where does he go? Where does Pitts go? And then where do you put Kelsey? So, Mike, where did you put those guys in your ranks?
Yeah. So I had McBride at 3, then I had Hawkinson. George Kittle, I left him at 5. He's 30. He just turned 30, and his situation seems pretty stable for that 2 to 3 year window run. So I'm okay having him there. And then I had Dalton Kincaid. But Dalton Kincaid is like his ranking. When I talk about fluid, like what happens if Stephon Diggs forces his way off of this team next year, and now they're trying to bring in someone who they think can be the number 1 wide receiver, and then there's Dalton Kincaid. I think there is a world where the offense runs through Dalton Kincaid, or there's a world where this is just status quo, and Dalton Kincaid will have spike games here and there, but as long as him and Dawson Knox are on sharing the field at the same time, like things, he's never a featured player, kind of like Kyle Pitts, where is Kyle Pitts even in the top 10 anymore? I mean, at some point, you can't just keep putting a player in the top 5 because they're super young and they're oozing with athletic ability. But what if Arthur's fired? I mean, oh my gosh! Now my head's spinning, boys. This is going to be an exciting offseason for the tight end position. The greater note is we're back, baby. Like it's not Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, log out, and the rest of the position doesn't matter. We have a lot of really actual usable fantasy tight ends, guys who are interesting. Like Jake, crazy question for you, Betz. Would you rather have Jake Ferguson or Kyle Pitts?
Ooh, man. If you would have asked me this a few months ago, that it's like, oh, Kyle Pitts, obviously.
Yeah, I know, but we can't keep. We can't keep doing
that. And Jake Ferguson is balling this year. He's played so well, and
he'll be 25 here in a month or 2.
And they like him, and Dak's going to get a huge contract here again. I think it's Jake Ferguson, honestly.
Yeah, that's how I have it. What a world!
I think I would still take Pitts, and I'll roll that into my argument.
I will of course you would. Falcons.
Yeah, classic.
Homer.
This is a selfish wish I'm about to share. I do not, but I told Mike this before the show. Like, Turd Ferguson could lead the league in touchdowns this next year. And then also in 2 years, he could pull a Robert Tonyan and be nothing. I think that his range of outcomes is, it's touchdown dependent on the offense. That is obviously throwing a ton, throwing to him in the red zone. So I get that. But my selfish wish is kind of dovetailing what we talked about. It is about the Atlanta Falcons, not just as a fan. But I'm thinking about the people, guys. Fantasy managers.
Yeah, that's all we think about. Not our teams.
Yeah. I mean, Falcons need to make a change for 2024. So let me just lay the land and let you guys say, this is dumb, this is not dumb. Here's how they could actually change things. Because just let you know, things don't actually change with Atlanta. They just kind of stay in this boat of death and mediocrity forever. It's been that way. Mike gets that, Arizona fan. Just kind of sit there in that lukewarm bathwater and just sit in it forever in your own filth.
You're like, it's okay. It's not great, but it's not the worst.
Yeah. So the Falcons play a lot of close games. 9 of the last 10 are one score. And the one that wasn't, they won by 9. So basically every single game is one score. And Arthur Smith was quoted as saying this today: "We will die trying to make sure we get this right." And I was asking all my Falcons friends, what do you guys want? They're like, I'll just take death. If we can just die and just get past this, I would be fine.
Give me liberty or give me death. Okay, I'll take the death.
I'll take the death. So here's the problems with the Falcons that you probably identified as a fantasy manager, but just to give you some numbers. The offensive line has actually been pretty good this year. They're 5th in PFF's pass and run blocking grades. Like, they've been a good unit. If you watch the games, that hasn't been the problem. They're just the most predictable offense in the league. On 1st and 10, guys, their neutral pass rate is 38%. That's dead last in the NFL. In other words, on 1st and 10, teams are lining up and going, I think I know what this team wants to do. I think they're going to run the ball.
We got to get to 3rd manageable, Kyle.
Definitely.
That's what it's all
Manage
about.
the clock.
It's
set up second.
It's not
and 8.
about like I could get a first down here or a second down. No, 3rd and manageable. That's where I want to be.
The crazy part about 3rd down conversion rates is they're actually top 10 in the league. So they convert 3rd downs, but
they're manageable.
They stink in the red zone. So when you're predictable and you run, it doesn't set things up well. You're supposed to be good at play action. That was Arthur Smith's thing. Remember in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, is that they were super efficient on play action. They've been bad at that, and they have turnover problems. So I want to ask you guys from a dynasty perspective what this team is trying to do. Because, Mike, you referenced it earlier. The Falcons tried to do what the Lions of the 2000s did, where they drafted a ton of offensive weapons. They drafted Joey Harrington, Charles Rogers, Roy Williams, Mike Williams, 4 years in a row. Those were top 10 picks. And none of them, and I mean none of them, worked out until a couple years later, they got a guy named Calvin Johnson and Matthew Stafford. So if you were building a team, and right now they have a top 10 pick, like, is it just like clear house, with Kyle Pitts, because his 5th-year option is coming up this offseason pickup? Is it just saying, we move on?
We're already there?
They have to decide this offseason.
Oh, my goodness.
So he's entering he'll be in his 4th year next year?
Yeah.
He'll be in his 4th year.
That makes sense, yes.
Ooh, time flies.
And by the way, if he's classified as a tight end, it's a $10.5 million cap hit. That's what they're projecting.
Yeah, that's an easy pickup.
And if he tries to classify as a wide receiver, it's $19 million, which is no. They're probably not going to do that. But could be a new regime, could be new. But this team, how do you make changes? I'm asking for a really, really, really close friend. How would you guys do this?
I mean, you have to clear house. It's tough. It's a human being, and we're talking about it taking his job away from him. That part sucks, but he doesn't deserve to have this job. Like, he doesn't. He is fine. The one like breadcrumb of hope is, or I should say 2. Yeah, I don't know if everyone saw it, but before the game, more news was coming out of, Arthur Smith can end up with a 7-10 record for the 3rd year in a row, and he probably can hold on to his job. Which that's not the norm. When a coach comes in and on by their 3rd year, you're not showing true improvement. I mean, oftentimes you get the boot. It's results based. They said he seems safe, but if he loses this week to the Carolina Panthers, that could start to change some things about the security of his job long term. And then I saw a little pretty much like a throwaway note from someone at the press conference where I think Arthur was, trying to get up there and do his press conference, and someone talked to Arthur Blank. Is that your team owner?
Yeah, Home Depot. Founder.
And it was like basically him saying, "Don't talk to me right now." Like, this is not a good time to be. And it was, oh man, your team owner getting big mad, which he should be, that your team just went out and lost to the worst team in football. I mean, I think the Falcons they're fine. Like, they have a roster that's good enough to compete. And if you have a roster that's good enough to compete and you lose to a dumpster fire of a team that's already on a backup coach with a quarterback who can't move the ball, I mean, that's consequences have to show up. So that's the path forward. Is next year you get a coach who comes in and it's like, holy crap, I'm surrounded by offensive weapons. How were you guys so bad in the past?
Yeah, it's bad vibes currently.
Bad. The vibes are bad.
They're not great. The thing that I think has been tough for Atlanta just in general, if you go back to the preseason, is this is a wide open division. Anyone can win this division. But a lot of people were saying like the Saints and the Falcons kind of have the runway to do it. And yeah, the Bucs have been a nice story, and the Panthers obviously fell on their face. But like, even with that opportunity, the team has not taken it. And if there would have been potentially better usage for the best players on the team, maybe better management as far as play calling, that could have gone a long way in sneaking out an extra win or two. And then maybe Atlanta isn't having this conversation. But I think it could be a blessing in disguise to have the season have gone the way it has and say, look, we do have to change. And whether it's Arthur Smith, just kind of getting the boot and getting a new, fresh perspective in there, that might be what we need. But this team needs a quarterback. I mean, the combination of Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke is just not it. I mean, it's just not going to work, right? Man, that interception from Ridder this past weekend. I know it was rainy. I know it was windy, but my goodness, it looked like me out there. I mean, what is this? You can't win in the NFL with bad quarterback play. We've seen that year after year. And sure, you could sneak in and you could win maybe a playoff game, but you'll get bounced the next week, right? So you need a quarterback to win in the NFL. They don't have one.
Yeah. A couple of quick cap notes for the team is there's literally nobody else under contract as a wide receiver on the team than Drake London next year. So they have room in terms of there's literally no one else under contract. Jonnu Smith, they can save themselves $6.5 million if they cut Arthur Smith's buddy, Jonnu, the Smith Bros, and leave him aside. And then they took a bunch of one-year flyers on really big names. Calais Campbell, who's like locker room guy, but he's also a lot older. Bud Dupree. They took a lot of one-year flyers on defensive guys. My actionable advice, though, is in situations where it's uncertain, because right now it's like, are they going to fire him? Are they not? This offseason, we'll find out. When things are uncertain, you usually can get a slight discount on these players, right? Probably, whatever you're going to pay for Kyle Pitts, if you think there's something there, it's at least 25% off of whatever it could be. Same thing with Drake London. Even Bijan Robinson right now should be locked in as the RB1 in Dynasty circles, or Gibbs. Those are kind of the two guys. I think you would get a slight discount if you were going to try to acquire him. However, understand when something's on sale, like if you're going to the store and you see something on sale, you're like, sweet. You're not really factoring in all the other costs of like shipping. And then you get to checkout and you're like, oh crap. Like when you're online, you're like, this sucks. And also that it's on sale. And there's a reason it's on sale. So don't just like jump at the value for the Falcons, but understand, I bet you can get them, I don't know, 15, 25% off. That's my holiday sale pitch.
Sure. And I mean, with Kyle, maybe you're more plugged in than I am with like how many first round quarterbacks are they expecting at this point in the NFL? Yeah. I mean, if there's at least 4 and you're in their pick, 8? Is that what we said?
They're at 10 right now.
10.
And if they win at home this weekend against the Colts,
that'll destroy it.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, if you have a top 10 pick and there's 4 quarterbacks, you don't have to make the super splash, the Bryce Young, we're trading up to number 1, have your plan and maybe one of those quarterbacks is there at like 6 and go up and get them at that point. So there's some pathways, but it starts with removing Arthur Smith.
I was going to say too, one thing just before we move on. Normally, rookie quarterback landing spots are rough because you don't have playmakers to support that guy, i.e. Carolina. But we've seen Stroud really emerge because they have Nico Collins in-house. They had Tank Dell. They have options to actually support him.
Dell.
Well, yes, pouring out. But in Atlanta, a rookie quarterback is going to be inserted into an offense with Bijan, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. A rookie could succeed there is kind of my take home if the coaching and scheme is right.
Yeah, and I'll talk about a little bit later, just some offensive coaching, just some hires that around the league, the Falcons and other teams could make. But let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
You need a vehicle that can meet your family's needs, and Toyota has you covered. Introducing the first ever Grand Highlander, a midsize SUV with the ideal combination of space, performance, style, and advanced tech. The roomy Grand Highlander never makes you choose between passengers and cargo. You can fit both with ease. With 3 spacious rows and available seating for up to 8, and legroom that makes even long trips comfortable. With Grand Highlander's available 362 horsepower hybrid max powertrain on limited and platinum trims, you can be confident you have the power, acceleration, and efficiency needed for almost any adventure your family can cook up. And you'll get where you're going in style with a modern, spacious cabin that's perfect for both playdates and date nights. Impressive tech upgrades take the new Grand Highlander to the next level, including a standard digital key, an available panoramic view mirror, and a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen. Don't just live life grander in the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander.
To be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame means you're among an elite class representing the greats of the game. The gold jacket given to those in the Pro Football Hall of Fame represents their achievements of greatness that only a few have reached. Hager has been the proud maker of the iconic Pro Football Hall of Fame gold jacket since 1978 and is America's #1 selling suit jacket brand. You don't have to be inducted to the Hall of Fame to elevate your style and dress like the best. Hager has you covered for every occasion. From the big interview, big promotion, or next wedding season, Hager gives you the confidence and look that you deserve. Hager's expertly tailored, premium quality fabric with built-in stretch and incredible attention to detail meets the demand for style, comfort, and class. That's why the greats wear Hager. Take advantage of all the incredible sales now throughout the holiday season at Hager.com. Wear what the greats wear. Visit Hager.com for every occasion.
All right, we're back. And Betz, you were going to serve us up another Christmas wish in Dynasty.
Yes, I am just going to kind of throw out an overarching theme. At the running back position, our esteemed colleague Mike Wright once said, "Screw them RBs," and
I've said
it really
many
is a changing of it really is a changing of the guard, right? I mean, you've got names that have been household RB1 players for years in Eckler, Henry, Kamara, Mixon, Nick Chubb, even Raheem Mostert this year, right? James Conner. The running back position is in a major turnover where those guys are all aging out, and we have this influx of youth that I just want to see these young running backs continue to emerge and be the guys that we need on our roster. I mean, Rachaad White, we've talked about him a lot. He's looked great recently. James Cook, really I think has exceeded everyone's expectation as far as what he did in that offense. And with them shifting to more of a run-focused, approach recently and looking at the situation for their pass catchers next year, if there is no Diggs, I mean, James Cook could be the center of that offense. So that's exciting. You got Devon Achane. Isaiah Pacheco, I think, has the job for at least another year in KC. And then my wish list to add to that is let's get Breece and Javonte healthier next year. Let's get Breece a quarterback, and let's see what these 2024 rookies can do. A couple of names that I'm interested in, and we'll see kind of as the NFL draft gets closer. Blake Corum, Trey Benson, and then Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. Did tear his ACL, unfortunately, in November, but he'll be a guy that I think people are very excited about in Dynasty. So lots of younger running backs that I'm getting more excited about that if you would have asked me about this group last year, I would have said, RB2, maybe flex guys for your team, but these guys are looking really nice right now.
You also mentioned, the guys, White, Cook, like these weren't guys that people were taking at the 102, 103. Like these could have been players on teams that were contenders and got them at the back of the first. So it's nice to be able to find running backs like that. A lot of times we're reaching in Dynasty for players like, I just need somebody to fill a roster spot. So the fact that we get a plethora of players like, Rachaad White was a second-round pick that you took a couple years ago, and now you're like, sweet, I have an RB that I can count on every single week. Didn't know he'd be the RB4, but yeah, it's pretty wild.
Is Rachaad White safe next year?
Like his job?
Yeah. I mean, like, sorry, I'm derailing our conversation here, but I want to talk about Rachaad White because I was thinking about it recently. He's had an excellent year. He has been, seemingly better on the ground, still not as efficient as you would hope for. Elite as a pass catcher, but is he really safe? Because he will, if this is like status quo, I mean, in redraft, Rachaad White's a back of the second round pick.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, I've been here before. I've been here before where these running backs were all alone and then they just he's not voluming his way. I don't want to, that's belittling how well he's playing. But a portion of what he's done is just volumed his way to being an elite fantasy running back. And you go, I've been here so many times of you fall in love with these running backs and they don't have the skills, the true skill set, but you overlook that and just look at the opportunities, and then you have a bust pick right in front of you. So what is your belief in Rachaad White? Like, are you valuing him as a top 10, top 12 dynasty running back right now? Or are you still holding out your opinion on him? Where are you guys at?
Yeah, I'll jump in. He's a guy that I was kind of off of this past offseason just because I did think it was going to be an opportunity-based play, and we've seen that, like you said, not work out for a lot of players. However, over the back half of the year, not only has his volume been awesome, his efficiency has gotten better, both as a runner and as a pass catcher. And to me, like, that's a good sign of a player's not just ability to compile volume, but also do something with it. So I do think he deserves back-end RB1 conversation in dynasty circles. That said, my approach to the running back position in general in Dynasty is to move them when their value is at their absolute highest. And coming off a season where he's, knock on wood, stayed healthy all year, been the dude, been a top 5 option in fantasy, you have to ask yourself, is this the best season we'll ever see from Rachaad White? And if you're a betting man, I would say probably. And so if someone's willing to value him in that way, I'd be looking to sell. Not that he'll be a bad fantasy player for you next year, just as far as capitalizing and getting the most for a dynasty asset on your team.
I think the hardest part is if you have him, you probably just hold.
Yeah.
For at least one more year.
Enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard because what are you going to get in return? Like a first that you're kind of spinning the same thing and hoping next year you find another running back. So maybe it's because on my teams, I'm desperate for running backs. Now, he's not somebody that I'm thinking I want to go acquire. Like, I feel like I'd have to pay more than what I think he's worth, where 2 years down the line, it's like this guy, he is older, like older for his, draft class and everything, that it worries me because the efficiency is so bad. So I think you just kind of enjoy it, stay around one more year, get the volume, but don't think you have a locked in RB1.
Like, I'll give you, here's a terrible decision for you. If you had, or not, well, not if you, just player A versus player B, Rachaad White or Kenneth Walker.
I don't love this decision.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
Walker, great elite running back, but possibly in a more of a timeshare next year. We don't know. The guy, you want to talk about not staying healthy, that's Kenneth Walker. This guy, we're 2 years in and just keeps missing multiple games. So that's a ridiculous place to be, where Kenneth Walker 1 year ago would, go heading into last year's offseason, easy top 5 dynasty running back. Easy. Then he gets then his dynasty value gets ripped at the NFL draft. And now you're looking across the yard into your neighbor's backyard, and you see Rachaad White there, not missing games, being incredible, catching all these passes. So what? I don't know. I have Kenneth Walker, and you're like, there's no way I would go trade him for Rachaad White. And it seems like if I offered that, it would get accepted immediately.
I think I would rather have Rachaad White, which is crazy because, and let me just explain.
Yes, chaos.
If ever there was a running back that you're going to bet on to catch 40 plus, 50 plus passes every single year is Rachaad White. Can Kenneth Walker actually catch the ball? He's actually shown it a little bit more recently. He can catch the ball, but that team is never going to focus on him in that role. So if you're playing in any half or full PPR format, to me, it's Rachaad White.
These teams are also right there on the NFC playoff door, where the Bucs are leading their division, Seahawks are right there, and Geno and Baker are question marks for the future too. So it's beyond this year, I think I would just say I get a better pass catching floor and I don't have the competition, but I also know that that's not ever the story in Dynasty. Whatever competition,
there will be competition.
Yes. So if you ask me right now, I'll just take White and hate myself for it. Yeah. Mike, you're up next.
All right.
Next Christmas wish.
So this one is actually not selfish because I don't have Patrick Mahomes anywhere in Dynasty. But get Mahomes some real players. Let this year and heaven help us all if they actually make a Super Bowl run with this roster, because it will then be, see, we told you we don't need real wide receivers. We just keep doing this, and Patrick Mahomes is that good. They need a player. Fantasy football needs a player. The era of Travis Kelce is coming to an end, and there is just nobody. Kyle, you pulled up the best non-Tyreek Hill fantasy wide receivers for Patrick Mahomes. And the first 2 years, it was Sammy Watkins, who came in at a sweet finish of 62 and 51. Then it was McCole Hardman for back-to-back years at wide receiver 59 and 51. Juju, okay. Juju had a wide receiver 29 finish. Maybe Rashee Rice is that guy, and he can keep improving and coming along as a wide receiver, and he becomes a true number one. I don't know, but the point being, even with Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce on the field right now, this is but a mere shadow of the offense that you would expect from Patrick Mahomes, the offense that the Kansas City Chiefs has given us, the scoring output, the fantasy output. So stop screwing around with Mahomes. Get him a true number one wide receiver. Mike Evans, T. Higgins, I don't know, make a splash in free agency or with your first-round pick, but for the love of God, give Patrick Mahomes a true number one wide receiver so we can enjoy life and enjoy Kansas City Chiefs games. Because, dude, Chiefs games are not fun. They're not fun football games to watch right now, unless you have Pacheco. Then they've been great. But watching this team is, I'm sad. I get sad a little bit watching this team, knowing what it should be with Mahomes. So please get him a player.
If you turn back the clock and look at their draft picks, McCole Hardman, they took in the second round ahead of, DK Metcalf.
Well, and the McCole Hardman, you got to remember, the McCole Hardman pick was a prayer pick of Tyreek Hill at that time. I don't know if people remember. Tyreek Hill was at a dynasty value of negative. It wasn't zero. It was negative. No one wanted Tyreek Hill because of his off-the-field stuff. Sure looked like he was about to get banished from the NFL. And then all of that stuff magically went away, and Tyreek Hill is where he is now. But that was the McCole Hardman pick was literally, we're going to lose Tyreek Hill. Who's the fastest wide receiver left? And they took McCole Hardman, and it was a dumb pick.
It was a reach because
it was panic.
He was a gadget player at Georgia when he was there, but then next year with CEH, they took felt like a luxury pick. They took him at, last pick of the first round, right ahead of T. Higgins, who they could now pay up for this year. And Pity City and Jonathan Taylor.
Michael Pittman. It was that pick of Clyde. All you have to, if you want a running back, just take Jonathan Taylor. But it's like, if you want to have a better team, imagine this team with Michael Pittman or T. Higgins on it. Ridiculous.
Yeah. And then I did some digging when they took Sky Moore, 54th overall. That was the pick before Trey McBride.
I mean, you had your next Kelce lined up.
Yeah, it's in free agency has been bad. Sammy Watkins, MVS. Did you guys see he has a higher cap hit this year than Tyreek?
Yeah, I mean Tyreek's cap is about to explode. So
Yeah,
cap hits are tough because they structure them like, do I want to take the hit now or am I trying to championship window and I'll pay for it later? So I'm not always looking at cap hits, but that when you see that they are about $1 to $2 million away, that feels real bad.
yes. And MVS, I mean, he's going to be cut so they can save themselves $12 million this next year. So that one feels ridiculous. They are $30 million under the cap this next year, but they have some big free agent signings like Chris Jones is going to be a free agent. L'Jarius Sneed, who's been awesome for, I mean, the defense is kind of.
Yeah, you got to pay one of those guys.
So I don't know, Betz, we've talked a lot about the free agent wide receivers this next year. Do you think that's a route they go? Because it's not working with your boy Kadarius Toney, and as awesome as Justin Watson is, it's just like outside of Rice, there's just nobody.
Yeah, and this is kind of the tricky thing with like the team, I feel like, and maybe the front office just sort of took for granted the fact that they had Mahomes and truly burnt draft picks. And when you have Mahomes making the contract that he will over the next however many years it is, really that stuff does catch up to you. You burnt the pick on Clyde, you burnt the pick on Sky Moore. And so I do think that they're going to probably look at that situation and say, look, we got to pay our defensive guys. Our best way to support Mahomes probably is going to be through the draft again. So they're probably going to, I think, use a back one or maybe a second round pick potentially on another pass catcher, another offensive weapon, especially with Kelsey aging out. So, I mean, Rashee Rice has looked great. I think he is going to be a fixture of the offense, obviously, moving forward with what he's done. We don't know about Kelsey. He could be back. He could move on. But if he decides to move on, this team has to prioritize a second option because they have kind of taken it for granted with how well Mahomes has played. So I think it'll be via the draft. It's just going to depend on, I think, what they want to do in free agency. Like you mentioned some of the upcoming guys and the upcoming names. Like T. Higgins is going to be pricey. He's going to command a 3-4 year deal and probably be one of, if not the highest wide receiver on the market. So it's just going to be a matter of how they want to prioritize that versus their defense. It's a lot of risk, man, but they got to get someone in there.
When I look at their drafts, this is what Dynasty rookie drafts feel like anyway. It's like, okay, I shot my shot with the flashy player. Hardman, didn't work. I tried with Sky Moore because I liked his production profile. Didn't work. CEH, like, he was good in this offense. Like, it's almost like they were doing what we do as managers all the time, just shooting our shots because you are blessed with the best asset in sports. Is that what you'd say?
Mahomes?
Yeah, I mean, he's no Ohtani.
I mean, for my knowledge of sports, yeah, because I don't factor in football.
You don't look at all the hockey contracts and figure out who's the next Sergei Fedorov?
No, what? No. No.
No, Kyle.
I appreciate the reference, Kyle.
Thank you. Yeah, NHL 94. What a ride that was. And let me throw out
That's
one
the one
more
where you can like where guys bleed on the ice, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of hockey games in the 90s that, like, hockey was super fun in video games, and then when I would go to watch it, I didn't enjoy it as much, and I kind of lost interest.
The actual sport?
The actual sport, but video games were awesome.
Did you play the NBA Jam one?
Play like NBA Jam? On
no, the NBA Jam version of hockey. There was a 3v3 hockey game that was real fast paced.
Oh, NHL
small
hits?
rink. Maybe NHL hits. Let me look at that.
I played Wayne Gretzky hockey on my 64, and that one was pretty awesome.
That one was pretty awesome.
Hits might have been it. I don't know if that's the arcade one I'm thinking of. I'll look into it, boys.
All right. I'm going to give us one more. This will be short and simple. And I don't think this is selfish because I think this is just us wanting good offensive football. 2023 for the NFL has been a little bit of a disappointment. I know that's a big overarching term, but like offensively, would you guys say this year has been kind of disappointing league-wide?
Oh,
very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the scoring's down. Betz and I talk all the time about 50-point games. I mean, only one of them have hit the over this year on 50-point games. And, we're getting weeks where it's like, we have 5 games that are in the 30s. The reason is because we have all of this nonsense. And I can hear Mike in my head, like, why are we doing this over and over again? Defensive head coach hires are not good. The track record is terrible. Since 2018, I looked at every single...
Yeah, say it louder, baby.
It's terrible. It's the worst. Since 2018, every single non-offensive head coach hire in the NFL, almost all of them have been utter busts and ruined franchise. The only ones that have been hits, Mike Vrabel, because he's coached out of his mind for the Titans. And if Jason were on this podcast, he would be going nuts because he's a Mike Vrabel truther. And then
they hit on a unicorn, to be fair to them.
That's true. And then I would say the only other hit, I can go through the list, has been DeMeco Ryans this year, and it's still only 1 year in.
Right.
Like, go through the list and you look at non-offensive head coach hires. Matt Patricia, let's laugh out loud about him being a Lions head coach. Steve Wilkes lasted a year. Vic Fangio, great coordinator, not a great head coach. Brian Flores was kind of done dirty. Matt Ja Rule, let's laugh about that. They gave him a $60 million deal, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Joe Judge, like, what are you doing? No one even liked him. Ron Rivera should have been fired last year and hopefully is fired this year. Hopefully they just move on. Brandon Staley was gone. Robert Saleh, defense is good, but it hasn't fixed the offense. Matt Eberflus, he's 8-22 as a head coach. Lovie Smith 1 year. Dennis Allen, his team hates him. And then I'll let you say this, Jonathan Gannon. What are your vibes on Jonathan Gannon?
They're not good. It's not good when you're supposed to be franchise quarterback who has played at an MVP level before looks this bad. I mean, and your defense is like your calling card is defense. And our defense is Arizona's defense is awful. It is terrible. Like, they get any position could just beat up on the Cardinals. So yeah, I would, as of right now, it is trending to be a catastrophe.
And here's the philosophical point behind this is fixing the defense is what a lot of time owners and other players, they look at the team and they go, man, we just need to fix this defense. We're 30th in the league. Let's bring in a defensive head coach guru from these really good teams. And the problem is that if your offense stinks and your offense is like not sustaining drives, then you're going to pay for it on defense, and you're going to see all of these teams that are suffering in the same way. However, teams that have gotten creative, teams that have gotten younger, and looked at coaching trees that have flourished and said, hey, I'm going to pick off those guys, it's gone pretty well. You look at this year. Why did DeMeco Ryans work? Well, they picked Bobby Slowick away from the 49ers and said, hey, I want to use this San Francisco offense, motion, everything else that Kyle Shanahan does. And that's where we've seen the most success, right? The Mike McDaniels, Kevin O'Connell was poached from Sean McVay's staff, Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen has been an awesome hire this year. The Colts are a great team.
Yes.
It's a miracle that they are surviving with Gardner Minshew. So my rant is, let's get these teams. Like, I'm looking at potential head coach spots, maybe Atlanta, Carolina, maybe Chicago, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, New England, maybe Washington. Let's get an offensive mind, a young offensive mind. And there's some guys out there that are probably going to be poached. You know, number one on the list is probably Ben Johnson from the Lions. He was tried to get poached last year. They brought him some more money. Eventually, you know, he's going to move on. Bobby Slowick, Cincinnati's Brian Callahan, Miami's Frank Smith. I mean, these are offensive coordinators. Tampa Bay's Dave Canales has done a great job with the Buccaneers. There are roles for these teams, and if they just get a little bit more creative, instead of just saying, let's fix the defense, I think it could be good. So that is my selfish wish.
Also, new blood. I'm going to combo on you and say new blood. I get it. It's terrifying to bring an unproven head coach in because they fail, but head coaches fail all the time. It's like the retreads fail all the time. Give someone new an opportunity over someone who has already failed multiple times. The guys who have, you know, like, are on their, even just their second job, it's weird. When you're like, oh, I saw what you did, and you survived in your last job for like just a couple years, but it might work for us. No, go give someone new a chance.
The Arrested Development thing.
Yes, exactly.
Well, it might work for us.
Yeah. It never works.
It's a great point, Kyle. I think it's super valuable to kind of think about that too, just like as an NFL fan, because you said the scoring has been so bad this year and, you know, kind of the way things have trended. But we talk about this in fantasy too. Like, sometimes we overrate matchups just in general, right? Like what your offense does will dictate how you perform on the field. I don't want to say defense doesn't matter because it matters, but relatively speaking, if you don't have an offense, you have nothing, right? And you can't win in today's NFL 13-7 every game. We're seeing that with the Jets. We're seeing that with a bunch of teams. So this is, I think, I'm excited to see where these guys go. I think, like you said, Ben Johnson is going to be the dude this offseason. I think the Chargers should give him an obscene amount of money to go with Justin Herbert for us, and we'll pair these little Christmas wishes together. But yeah, man, the coaching right now in the NFL seems very sus, as the kids say.
I did a little research, as I like to do, and I just said, I'm going to find the guy who is like holding the clipboard in San Francisco, because I bet 5 years from now, we're going to be talking about this guy. So, look at San Francisco, look at the Rams, look at the Dolphins, look at some of these teams. You're like, this offense is innovative. And I bet you're going to be finding some assistants in the next 3 to 4 years that are household names. Like, I mean, we weren't talking about Mike McDaniel. He was a ball boy back in the day. And with the Falcons, he was just chilling, hanging out. And then all of a sudden, he's the hottest name, in coaching. So hopefully.
Yep. I do have an update as well. It is NHL Open Ice.
Okay.
That was the game, and it's a 2v2. 2v2, I guess the 3 if you count the goalie.
Oh, I'm seeing a Paul Kariya, Teemu Solani, Anaheim Ducks.
Yeah, Midway made it. Midway is the company that did all the NBA jams and stuff too.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Dynasty Podcast. We will be back next week after Christmas and get to hang out with you guys, talk more Dynasty in the offseason. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your Dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.
Introducing the first ever Grand Highlander, a mid-size SUV with the ideal combination of space, performance, style, and advanced tech. The roomy Grand Highlander boasts 3 spacious rows with available seating for up to 8. Its available 362 horsepower hybrid max powertrain unlimited and platinum trims delivers the power, acceleration, and efficiency so your family can take on any adventure. There's even a standard digital key, a panoramic view mirror, and a 12.3-inch multimedia touchscreen so you always arrive on time. Live life grander in the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander.